Welcome back to the Britt Mayer Show, where we talk about the stories that matter most to you in the realms of culture, politics, faith, and health. And today we're talking about something that is on many parents' minds, especially given the stats of childhood cancer. If you find yourself nervous about the current stats, or if you are questioning the one size fits all pills from Big Pharma, or if you're a health warrior that's just hungry for God's natural blueprint amid all the lies, then this episode is for you. So I want you to picture this: a 2-year-old boy full of giggles and boundless energy is suddenly thrust into a storm of chemo drips, hospital gowns, and whispered fears. But what if I told you that that storm birthed a movement of radical hope while lighting the path to holistic victory? That's our Fire Forge story of our guest, Susan Johnson. She's a warrior mom, functional nutritionist, and founder of Kick Cancer Movement. After her son Kicker's gut-wrenching diagnosis with leukemia in 2013, Susan didn't just survive the 3.5 years of daily drips and hundreds of surgeries. She thrived. She weaved faith, fierce advocacy, and integrative wisdom to help him ring the bell cancer-free in 2017. And now Kicker is a testament to God's sovereignty over sickness and a mother's determination to see him well. Just days ago, President Trump signed a game-changing executive order pumping $50 million into AI to outsmart childhood cancer and to slash its brutal side effects. And so we're going to unpack all of that with Susan. We want to arm you with practical tools to steward your family's health and to end with hope that kicks your fear away. So please subscribe wherever you're listening and grab your coffee, a notebook, and a pen. We are going to cover so much information, and let's get started with my friend, Susan Johnson. I have been sharing We Heart Nutrition with you guys for a long time, and it's because I truly love not only the company, but the products and how I feel since I've started using them. I am a lifetime Maha. I love making my lifestyle as healthy as it possibly can be, but also as easy as it possibly can be. So We Heart Nutrition aligns with that, but beyond that, they also align with my values. I love that this company makes sure that they donate 10% of all sales back to pro-pregnancy, pro-mama resource centers. It means that my dollars are actually going toward my values and not fighting against them. This specific Wholesome Women's Multi is packed with bioavailable methylated B vitamins, something that is very important to me, and it doesn't cause any of that discomfort that sometimes comes with supplements. All of their products are science-backed for maximum absorption. So not only are you getting the highest quality, but it's actually going in and absorbing and doing what you want it to do. So I would highly recommend grabbing the Wholesome Women's Multi, checking it out, and seeing if you feel better like I do while using this. Grab it at weheartnutrition.com and use code ROOTEDWINGS for an exclusive discount. Again, that's code ROOTEDWINGS at weheartnutrition.com. Susan Johnson, thank you so much for joining today. We have known each other for a long time. We've been in the battle for a while, but this is the first time that we've done anything like this. So I'm just excited to get you in front of my community because you have such an incredible story and such a heart for healing. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I so appreciate it. Yeah, just to share hope and helpful advice.
Well, let's just get right into it. Let's start with what threw you into the fire, because you weren't always doing what you are now. And it'll give good background as to why you're qualified to speak into all that we're going to cover today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say I got into this. My daughter, who's now 16, amazing. Her name's Selah. We had the opportunity to adopt her at birth, and she came from a pretty health compromised birth mom. And so it was in that moment that our fellow friend, and who I consider a mentor, and now actually I'm sitting in her practice that we purchased, Kim Schutte, came alongside of us once we adopted Selah and was like, you cannot give her the formula that you see at the stores. You need to give her this homemade raw milk baby formula. And we watched this baby who was on oxygen immediately at birth just develop into this incredible, healthy young child, and now young woman. And so that is what originally opened our eyes to this idea of like doing things different and not just following kind of the normal well checkups and the doctors giving you the advice, and knowing there's things you can question. And so Selah was about, she was 4 when her little brother was diagnosed with cancer. So we were like, Selah's a only baby. We need to have another child. Let's have one of our own. And so we got pregnant fairly quickly, great, healthy pregnancy. and brought Kicker into the world. And he was super healthy. We didn't do any of kind of the mainstream protocol with him when he was born, and put him on, immediately breast milk. I always say he went from breast milk to bone broth. That was kind of
Mhm.
the transition
Same.
of eating.
It was the
And
same over here.
yeah, just that kind of traditional foods diet, right?
Mhm.
At this point, I'd opened up a private practice. I'd gone back to school. Kim had encouraged me, go back to school, become a nutritional therapy practitioner. And so I did, and I started, Kicker was a baby. I just started seeing clients out of a pediatrician's office in Mammoth Lakes, where we lived at the time. And I wouldn't touch cancer, but I would really see anything else. I would see, weight loss and digestive issues and autoimmune and kids' health. And then Kicker was almost 3 and he stopped walking. And then he just started having these weird symptoms. So my protocol, which you'll
Mm.
get, I immediately put him on the GAPS diet. I'm like, something's
Right.
wrong with his digestive system.
Mhm.
Let's put him on the gut and psychology syndrome protocol.
Mhm.
So I
Which
started
for
doing that.
anyone who's listening who's not familiar, it's an incredible, kinda reset for the gut, and we know now there's so much gut-brain connection, and the gut controls so much, so, yeah, we did that with one of my kids too, and it's a phenomenal thing to look into if anyone's interested, and I'll put that in the show notes because it's worth looking into, the GAPS protocol.
And the cool thing about it too is that you can get the book, and really, like, it's helpful to work with a practitioner, but you can do it on your own.
Yeah.
Like, if you have the book, it's really the manual. So
Mhm.
yeah, that was kind of our go-to, and I'd used it with clients. I had used it in my practice to literally watch autism in two twin girls. All of a sudden, 2 years after following the protocol, they were declared completely normal functioning, no longer on the
Wow.
spectrum.
Wow.
So I had
Yeah,
just seen
that's
this.
the brain connection with
Yep.
the gut. Wow, that's incredible.
It was really, in fact, I still have that mom's voicemail. This was in 2013. I still have her voicemail saved in my
Mm.
phone because it was just one of the most rewarding calls to get.
Yeah.
Um, so here, I feel like I have all the tools. I know what to do. And we took him to a chiropractor, and he started moving his legs around, and Kicker's giggling, and I immediately knew it was in his bones. It was in his blood. Like, something was really wrong. And I came home, and I remember distinctly, I sat on my bed and I called Kim, and I said, Kim, something's super wrong with Kicker. And I don't know what it is, but I think it's really bad.
Mhm.
And she said, Season, I'm sure it's okay, but if you really want to be at peace, why don't you drive down to Dr. Moreno, which he lived in LA, and just take him in and see, what's going on. And this was right after Thanksgiving. We had
Hmm.
had family in town, and he just wasn't walking, and he's almost 3 years old. And so we drive down to Dr. Moreno's. Long story short, we end up, he suggests, he's an osteopath who, by the way, is incredible. Um, and he says, I think you need to take him into the ER, and I'm going to get his lab work back, and I'll call you in a little bit. But why don't you just take him to Loma Linda?
Hmm.
So we took him to the ER, and I will never forget when they were like, we're transferring you to the oncology floor. My husband is like, what's that mean? Like, literally didn't know what oncology meant.
Mhm.
And so they transfer us, and then, fast forward, we're just in this situation. We're in this whiteboard room, and they're telling us, we're sitting with doctors and nurses, nurse practitioners, and they're giving us this diagnosis of acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And I just remember feeling like I was just staring at the wall, like nauseous, thought I was going to throw up. I
Yeah.
didn't know what was happening. And I
Mhm.
remember making eye contact with the nurse practitioner and seeing tears roll down her cheeks. And just remember thinking, like, it terrified me, and it also comforted me, like,
Mhm.
that there was this
Human
connection,
side.
like mom to
Yeah.
mom, right? That
Mhm.
And so we, at that point, we left the conference room, walk into his hospital room, and immediately get on the phone with Kim and Dr. Moreno. And we're like, okay, so they just told us their protocol. What's yours? So we
And
can
it's all
choose.
just this fast. It's like you go in and here's the diagnosis, here's the room. It's just boom, 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 this fast.
And then they wanted to start him on chemo that night,
Immediately. Whoa.
immediately.
So it's not like you go home and we're gonna give you a call, you'll get the results in.
No, this was, and
Oh my
I
gosh.
think there are cases like that. In fact, one of the bummers is that pediatric cancer is often misdiagnosed because
Mhm.
now it's becoming more common, but it's generally, most pediatricians aren't seeing that on a daily basis. So they don't know how to diagnose it, and they don't send for proper testing, because Dr. Moreno was so intuitive
Mm,
and he was so wise. He was like, I need you to go to the hospital immediately. And then they do the lumbar puncture, determine that there is leukemia cells in the bone
mm.
marrow and the blood. So yes, it can happen really quickly. And this is where I tell parents to pause and before they start treatment, to make sure they have all results back. We were fortunate that it was diagnosed correctly. You know, we were put on the protocol standard for ALL, but I've worked with many families that were unfortunately put on the wrong protocol because they didn't get all the results back for the
Wow.
specific type of cancer. And that can be detrimental,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Especially for a little body.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we get on the call and I'm thinking at this point we get to choose like what's the best path. I want to
Right.
hear what Dr. Moreno and Kim say. And then I've already heard what they say and it sounds horrendous.
Mhm.
Chemotherapy every day for 3.5 years.
Whoa.
And my baby who's never had Tylenol or like anything. And so I'm like, there's got to be a different option. And so we get on the phone and Kim and Dr. Moreno were kind of like stumbling over their words. And finally I was like, what's going on? Like, what's the plan? And Kim said, Susan, you can't leave. Like you are now in the conventional system and it is required that you follow treatment.
Okay. Explain that, because I think that that is, I've heard that too. And I want to drill down on that because once you're in, and in your case, I mean, you walked through the doors and you were in because they give you the diagnosis, they give you the room, this is the protocol. So you're in California. What, just drill down on what that means in reality for parents.
So it's nationwide. And
Okay.
it's not a federal law, but there are many state laws and federal laws that kind of encompass this general understanding that if a parent has a child under the age of 18 and does not comply with standard procedure, standard of care in cancer treatment, the child will then be property of the state and the parents can be arrested, essentially. And so it's not just California. In fact, this is also happening in Canada and
Mm,
other countries as well. And this
I
is
just, that's in, there's so much that I'm like, how is this even legal? But that one, I'm like, that you, so you, in your case, you couldn't even choose an alternative method because you're in the system now. And if you say no, and I'm leaving with my kid, they're going to come after you and take your kid from you and then force this treatment on him.
exactly. And we're seeing this happen on a regular basis. I mean, I
Oh my
shared
gosh.
today, we were talking before we hit record about a case. This happens all the time. And then we'll see the media spin that, right,
Mm,
as like negligent parenting. And I will say, and you know this, Britt, like there are reasons we have laws in place because
right.
unfortunately there are negligent parents.
Hmm.
But there's a difference between negligence and a parent having the opportunity to intuitively choose what they believe is going to
Hmm.
be the best option for their child,
Hmm.
especially when they have signing providers willing to help and willing to administer and willing to oversee care.
Hmm.
You know, not just going and sending them home and say, I'm going to give them juice every day. Like
Right.
that's negligence.
Right.
But yeah, we all of a sudden realized like, oh my gosh, we're stuck here.
And now you
And
have to do all of that protocol that you were already throwing up about because it's so much for little kicker. Now you realize we're in it, we can't get out. If I do, it's going to be really bad. They're going to come after me. They're going to force it anyway. So then what happens next? So you're in the hospital, he's in his room.
and they get him all, set up to prepare him for surgery to place his port, which goes into his chest, and that's how they're going to administer chemo and all the different medications. And so that next morning, he's in surgery to get his port,
Mm,
and within moments, I mean, we have chemo pumping through his body. And it was at this moment too that like I mean, I will say I was pretty frozen for
mhm,
the first week being in there, just angry and frozen and like lifeless. Like
mhm.
I wouldn't speak to anybody because I didn't like my husband was the only I wouldn't even my sister I think I talked to because she would come in and bring us food. But I was in such shock. And so
Like out of
right
body,
away, what's that?
like out of body experience.
Total out of body
Yeah.
experience. Yeah, like how did we get here?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
we immediately had my sister, who thankfully her husband was going through residency at Loma Linda. They lived right near there. She was also a practitioner doing what I did. And so they were bringing us meals, and we didn't, of course, touch the hospital food. That was horrific, just seeing what they would bring in. And I finally said, if I see the dietitian walk into this room one more time, somebody's going to probably get hurt. Like my anger started to kind of funnel in like mama beast mode. Like, don't walk through these doors with your plate of
I'd
crap.
love for you to talk about that, and then we'll keep going with it. But I'd love for you to talk about the food issue with when it comes to all of this, because that's a huge component of the rest of your story is the failings of mainstream medicine, which includes food and diet. So what were they giving in expectation that this is what Kicker is going to be eating while he's on all of these drugs?
Yeah. They brought in breakfast that first morning, and
Hmm.
it was either frosted mini wheats or one of those cereal boxes full of sugar. My kid had never had cereal in his life. Reduced fat milk, bright red jello,
Oh my
and there
gosh.
was a cinnamon roll. And I mean, I literally was like, this has got to be a joke.
Hmm.
How is this food supposed to help my child that just got diagnosed with cancer?
Hmm.
And I will never forget a few, maybe that later that afternoon or the next day, the oncologist came in and I said, I have a question for you. Do you believe that diet has anything to do with his ability to heal? And he kind of laughed and he's like, Mom, feed him French fries and ice cream and cake if that's what he wants. We just don't want him to lose weight. And that's when I knew, like, okay, all hands on deck. This is on me.
Yeah.
I have got to advocate for my child. And I know that's not true because what is a PET scan? A PET scan is what they use to detect cancer, and they use radioactive sugar because they know cancer cells take up glucose, which is sugar, 80% faster than a healthy cell. They're literally
Wow.
using sugar as the Trojan horse to find cancer, but then telling us it doesn't matter what they eat through
Yeah.
diagnosis. I mean, it's
It
totally contradictory.
incongruent. It does not make any sense.
No.
No.
So we had, I'll never forget, we had some special sweet nurses and we had friends bringing us real food. So they brought Kicker a homemade chicken and duck liver pate that had like all the nutrients in it. And he's sitting in his bed at almost 3 years old. He's not even three yet, scooping organic plantain chips into his pate and eating it. And our nurse came and he's like, what is he eating? And I told him, he's like, I have never heard of that or seen that in our
Yeah.
hospital. Like just laughing, like I don't even know
It
what to say
probably
to
had
that.
never been in that building ever, and
No,
probably still has not been.
exactly. But then fast forward, like a few weeks in, he's getting pumped with all these drugs. What we did do is we refused, and this is a big thing I teach my families is you know your child best and you have to advocate for them. And we refused all the side effect meds. Like, no, I don't want him on Zofran. No, I don't want him on
Mm,
antifungals. No, I don't want him on all these prophylactic options. I said, we're going to try to just avoid that with nutrition. And I couldn't say supplements yet because we had a little corner in our hospital room box of all the supplements that we did have him on, thanks to Kim and Dr. Moreno and
mhm,
this alternative team that was kind of helping us. But
mhm.
we had to hide it. Like we literally were opening capsules because he's not swallowing pills yet, mixing it in like a little bit of applesauce and just delivering all these nutrients to him. So I did avoid all of those meds, but we couldn't avoid chemo. We couldn't avoid steroids and then all the surgeries that they wanted them to do. But the nurses started to notice. They started to see that 1 week in, 2 weeks in, he's not vomiting. He's not getting puffy. He's not losing his hair. He had a little bit of neuropathy, and we quickly changed that with lymphatic drainage. We used a little bit of L-glutamine, just some different things that we
Mhm.
supported his body naturally with touch and real food, real supplements. But he was,
How did you know what to, because I remember watching you on that journey. Like I remember what you were feeding Kicker, and I like, and I loved it. I was so impressed that you were just taking the bull literally by the horns and advocating for your son against the system. I think you were a big inspiration for me early on, actually, where I was like, yes, like we mamas can take charge. Like we don't just have to surrender. This is awesome. I was so empowered by you and watching you. But how did you know what to feed Kicker during that? Because they're bringing you the plates of Jello, and then you're bringing in pate. But how, I feel like that could be overwhelming for some moms who are listening to this and thinking, I wouldn't even know where to start. How did you So how did you know where to start and what to feed him to help heal him as his body is getting all these toxic drugs put into them?
Yeah, absolutely. That is so overwhelming because a lot of times you're in the hospital, right? And so you
Mhm.
have limited resources. And I was a functional practitioner. And so I had this understanding of nutrition and really an ancestral diet, and I knew how nourishing that was. And don't get me wrong, I questioned everything in that first month of diagnosis. Like, how did my baby get cancer? Like,
Mhm.
this is what I do for a living. Am I a quack? Like
Mhm.
everything that I shared, is it not true?
Mhm.
So I had that moment of questioning. And then I just got back to common sense, is like eat food in its whole form in the most organic state. And that can be medicine. I did though have a team. And that's the thing. Like, even with my knowledge, and I know you've experienced this as a
Mhm.
mom when you know all the things, but then the minute your kid gets sick, you kind of like, wait,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's a real thing that happens. And so we had a team, and we had Kim, we had Dr. Moreno,
Mhm.
my sister, they all kind of rallied around us and were giving us here's what he should eat. This is, how much of this he should eat. He needs organ meats. He
Mhm.
needs fermented foods. And so I was following the guide of our team and just
So were you
implementing that.
doing, I know you were going real ancestral with the ancestral diet. What would you say your main focus is on? I mean, you said sauerkraut, so fermented food. You were doing rich organ meat, so liver, brain, heart, all of those good things. And then what else? Like what were your main if you had to dice it up, like in a day, what did you really want to make sure that Kicker got in his body during this time where he's on chemo and everything else?
Yeah. So you think of like the nutrients that are needed for healing. You think of CoQ10, L-carnitine, choline. So eggs cooked
Mm,
in butter. We would do bitter greens. So like and granted, this is a conversation with parents too, because thankfully my child wasn't picky because he went from breast milk to bone broth and
mhm.
he didn't eat crap, but I'm dealing with kids every day that's not their story. And so trying to
Yes.
change that, it takes time, but I promise it's so possible.
Mm,
And so it's starting with a little bit, like a little bit of bitter greens, like a little bit of arugula, and then you put a little Parmesan and olive oil on it, and the child will generally eat it.
mhm.
A fork full of sauerkraut, or maybe they like pickles. And so you do one pickle. So it is a bit of a game of like slowly introducing each day. And then we teach families how to incorporate it and get creative. But we were doing breakfast, looked I mean, there was nothing fancy or like creative. It was eggs cooked in butter, bitter greens, and or a fermented food, organ meats, at least one meal a day. And then if we were supplementing with them as well in a capsule. Um, Raw kefir was actually
Mm,
something that and it's so beautiful when you see a child, it's kind of like a child's connection to Jesus.
mm,
When you ask them, like, what does Jesus talk to what has God spoke to your heart lately? Or and they have this beautiful, like intuitive, raw opinion or
mhm.
raw experience.
Yeah.
And it actually can be the same with kids in their diet. They can be really intuitive.
Hmm.
And he would crave raw kefir, which it's tart. I mean, it's not this like yummy thing. He
Yeah.
would walk into chemo appointments. You can imagine how fun this was to deal with. Walk into chemo appointments with his quart of Papa Mark, which Mark McAfee, who owns Raw Farm,
Oh,
he
yeah.
called it Papa Mark's milk. And he'd walk in with his quart of kefir and come to find out. And I spent time with Mark, in the last few years dissecting this. There's tons of anti-cancer properties in raw kefir.
Hmm.
And he
And he
would
just
drink that.
intuitively knew that. His
Yes.
body wanted that.
Right. And
Hmm.
granted, most kids aren't going to love raw kefir. So we teach them, if you have access to clean raw kefir, California, we're thankful to have that, put it in a smoothie and you can add some berries to sweeten it up.
Hmm.
Right. But these were like very simple, basic foods. He loved steak. And we always say when we do meat, you don't want to like cook it high. Barbecuing isn't always the best. So kind of low and slow. So we'd make him like medium rare steak. He loved that.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, now he has a Lamborghini budget with food. It's like ridiculous. We can't take him anywhere because he'll be like, Mom, I'm going to go ahead and get the grass finished steak. And it's like $80. I'm like, what am I going to say?
With some
No.
bone marrow on the side.
Literally, he
Yeah.
will order bone marrow. If bone marrow's on the menu, he's ordering bone marrow.
Yes.
That was the other thing we gave him,
Mm.
was bone marrow. So I would
Mhm.
roast bones, scoop the marrow out, and we can mix it into anything you can't tell. Mix it into scrambled
Yeah.
eggs, mix it into his taco bowl, because the marrow, like for like, So
Hmm.
we knew his bone marrow was affected by leukemia cells. So we needed to contribute to the tissues to rebuilding that marrow, keeping his platelets up. And so we were doing that by supplementing with bone marrow from a healthy animal.
Wow. I just think it's so cool that, it was Hippocrates, right? That said, let food be your medicine.
Yeah.
And that's like exactly what you leaned into. So let's talk about what you saw doing this because so this truly is integrative. And that's what I want the audience to hear is your approach was not completely alternative because you couldn't, and it wasn't completely mainstream because you didn't want it. So you truly did live out an integrative approach to childhood cancer. So what once you got all that situated, he's been on the chemo, what did you start to notice in comparison to other children who were also battling Kicker's type of cancer?
So the biggest thing right away, I remember being told, and we were inpatient for that initial diagnosis. I can't remember now, but I want to say 15 days or so. I remember walking out of the building, kind of like just anticipating this new normal
Hmm.
and having a little bit of like hope in my heart. And the nurse grabbed me to say goodbye. And she's like, just so you know, I want to prepare you that it'll be likely that he's inpatient at least 10 times in this first year and a half of treatment because his immune system's weak because of opportunistic infection.
Okay.
And so I left the hospital all of a sudden completely deflated, like, we're going to be back at least 10 times in the first year just because he gets sick. And I remember speaking, like, get behind me, Satan, not to the
Mm-hmm.
nurse, bless her heart, but like, this is not going to be our reality. We're going to do whatever it takes to
Hmm.
minimize this. And we did. In 3.5 years, he was not hospitalized one time outside of a scheduled appointment for chemo. Not one
Now,
time.
that's completely rare when it comes to childhood cancer, right? Because I actually had a guest on recently and she was talking about her experience with childhood cancer. And she was like, it was constant. He'd pop a fever and then there would be some sort of his immune system would have an issue and then there'd be another fever. And we were in and out of the hospital all the time. So
Yeah.
that would be common, right? Kicker should have been just on a rotation at the hospital.
Exactly. And now though, that's what's beautiful is I've seen now that we went from, having one child to cancer to thousands around the world, that can be normal. And we're
Hmm.
seeing this happen with families that are implementing diet, like Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine. And so one of the things that happens is chemo is cytotoxic, but unfortunately it's cytotoxic to the whole body. It doesn't differentiate. So when
And
you give,
cytotoxic means it seeks out to destroy.
correct.
Okay, so
And there
it's
are,
not going to just go in and find those cancer cells. It's just going to find everything is its prey, everything.
yep,
Okay.
exactly. And there are what adults have the option to do, these different tests that can show you what natural cytotoxic therapies they can do. And so cytotoxic doesn't always mean like a toxic substance. It means toxic to what you're trying to destroy.
Hmm.
Kids don't have that option, but we can do that with food. We can actually eat food that's protecting our healthy cells and that's actually improving the efficacy of the chemotherapy, right? So all the foods I said, choline rich foods, CoQ10, foods high in quercetin, foods high in L-carnitine, really ancestral,
Hmm.
organic, animal-based
Very
foods,
traditional.
very traditional. And so when we're implementing this, we're able to see the immune system is able to stay at a more regular level so that we're not watching the absolute neutrophil count is the count that they talk a lot about, doctors talk a lot about, because when that's too low, they're very susceptible to infection. With Kicker's absolute neutrophil count, we kept it at a norm, like his count stayed within the normal range of a healthy child
Mm.
through the duration of his treatment, with the exception of what we call delayed intensification, which is where they use an insane amount of really, really toxic bright red, because chemo should be bright red,
Mm.
chemotherapies. And it got to the point where he was doing so well
Hmm.
that they didn't believe the therapies were working because he didn't look sick. And so they increased his dose 600% of normal. And one night
That's
he
crazy that
vomited.
that's their barometer is like,
Yes,
you don't look
you don't look
sick enough.
you don't look sick enough.
Oh my gosh.
And I'll have to share with you this text that I got from a mom. Um, but he vomited fluorescent green and it burnt a hole in our pillow.
Oh
And I was
my
like,
gosh.
this is insane. Like they're literally poisoning my child because he's doing well
Oh.
through treatment and they don't think it's working. So their only answer because to
Mm,
and again, the doctors want the same outcome as the parents. They want to see your child cancer free. They only know one way to do it.
mm-hmm,
And they don't see a child thriving through cancer. That's not the norm. So they
mm-hmm.
think if your child isn't pale, they're not gray, and they're not bald, then certainly it's not working. And I have this mom I was speaking to you about. I'm kind of helping her on the side of just like fighting to keep her child.
Mm-hmm.
Her child is being threatened. They've been threatened with the CPS because he is one of the kids that has implemented a lot of the therapies that we teach alongside the chemotherapy
Mm-hmm.
and is doing so well and he looks healthy. And this message said that at last week's appointment, the oncologist said if he doesn't look like a kid on chemo by his October 17th appointment, they will be making a referral for investigation into home med compliance.
This is absolutely shocking. And what state is this?
This is in Tennessee.
This is in, well, Tennessee is where everyone's moving because we think Tennessee is so much freer. This should be alarm bells for everyone at how the medical system, in so many ways, like the corruption of it, has made it so that we can't protect our children as parents have every right to. And even that, like the thought that because your kid doesn't look sick enough, we're going to put in a referral to possibly have your child taken away from you.
Yeah,
That is that's absolutely terrifying. And so I just think it shows everything wrong with the whole conveyor belt system.
it
So what are you
does.
doing with that? And then we'll get back into with kicker, but what do you do with that?
So I'm just kind of providing evidence from all the families that I've worked with that like
Mhm.
this is normal. I can show you blood levels from all these kids and that they are able to maintain a healthy ANC, that they're not bald, they're not. And yes, of course, there's certain parts of treatment, and Kicker did lose his hair when we went through that really intense phase and it grew right back. But this can be normal. So I'm literally trying to provide evidence on blood work and then testimonies from some of my parents that are like, yes, your child can thrive through cancer. It doesn't mean that it's going to look perfect and there's going to be ups and downs, but they aren't vomiting every hour on the hour. They don't
Mhm.
have to be. So we're
Mhm.
just trying to flood them with evidence. There's an attorney involved now. We're trying to get the administration
Good.
involved. Um, but yeah, uh, this is a whole bigger conversation. So even with this new bill that President Trump rolled out, like
Yes.
it's
And we're
not
going
good
to get
enough.
into that. We're actually
Yeah.
we'll talk about that toward the end
Okay,
because
good.
I want to bring that in because I'm like I'm sure you have thoughts on that and it was very confusing. I accidentally watched it and I'm like, what? What are we like? We went from Tylenol to this. What? What are we? What's going on here? So,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll talk about that at the end. So, for those listening, stick around because we're going to cover that toward the end of this. Trump's new AI with childhood cancer and all of that. Okay, so let's go back to kicker though. So through this, you have the nutrition, the holistic support. He's truly integrative and he's not ending up on rotation at the hospital. So how long did this last his whole experience with battling this cancer?
So he was in treatment for 3.5 years. And he took chemo by mouth every day for 3.5 years, and
Mm,
then would go in every month for chemo by port and chemo in spine through lumbar punctures.
so much.
So much. But again, like it's beautiful to see. And I, like, of course, like you did with your daughter,
Mhm.
when you're thrown into something like this, you're like, why God?
Mhm.
Why us?
Mhm.
I remember being in the grocery store when he was first diagnosed, and I have a cart filled with like all organic food, and this family behind me that had four little kids hanging on the cart, and it was filled with crap.
Mhm.
And looking at those healthy kids and going, really? But
Mhm.
my baby has cancer?
Mhm.
But then to now see, like, I'm so thankful we had this opportunity to walk through this and to do all these horrible treatments that I do believe played a role in his healing. Don't get me wrong. I
Mhm.
do think chemotherapy is effective for leukemia,
Mhm.
but now we have this powerful testimony to show that it can be done different, and your child can be a healthy child walking through a diagnosis like this, and they don't have to be impatient. He played soccer, he did
Mhm.
taekwondo, he skied. Like he was literally a healthy little boy despite the treatments.
So
And
what
it
do you
was,
think? I know you said that it was integrative, but what do you think it was if when you take a step back and you look at the whole picture of everything you did for kicker, because it was also you did other modalities too, right? Did you do red light therapy? And I remember you doing blankets, sauna blankets, I think. Did you?
yeah,
Am I right? Is that
we
I mean that
had
was a
not
while
a
ago.
sauna. No, and that's what's so cool now with the evolution of access to information and even with medicine changing. Like now, my families, I'm like, you guys have
So
so
much.
many more resources. Yes. And we
Yeah.
have so much more information to help them through
Mhm.
this, but we didn't use red light at the time. Like that wasn't something we did. We did
Mhm.
HBOT, so hyperbaric oxygen
Okay.
therapy.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
We did
Mhm.
that. We had a biomat,
Mhm.
which is similar to PEMF therapy, kind of, but just kind of an energetic healing, cellular
Mhm.
healing. So he'd lay on that at home. But I really think, honestly, Britt, nutrition was the foundation. And I want to say this, and I'm not saying this because I want somebody to lose hope, but I think because we gave him such a good start as
Mm.
well. Like I was thankful to know better before he was diagnosed that we did feed him well. We didn't inject him with things that were
Mhm.
unnecessary. And I really think that gave him a good start. But
Mhm.
that said, I've still seen families that are coming in with, uneducated on all fronts.
Mhm.
And you're still seeing their child, when they implement these therapies, able to thrive.
Mhm.
Um, we did gentle detox every single day through treatment, and that is doctors will tell you absolutely don't detox. And
And with
even
detox, was yours like was it a bath? What did
yeah,
you do for detox?
we do Epsom salt baking soda baths. We would do clay baths. We would do castor oil packs.
Hmm.
We would do I'd have him bounce on the trampoline every day because his kids
Yes.
are
The
lymphatic.
rebounding.
And that's fun for kids. They're like, sure, I'll
Yeah.
go bounce on the
It's
trampoline.
funny. We do rebounding too. My kids do it every morning, and we host small group for our church, and it's so funny because it's just out. I purposefully have it somewhere where everyone can see it because for my family, I'm like, if you see it, you're going to get on it. If I have it
Yeah.
somewhere where you can't see it, no one's getting on it. So whenever we host small group, the kids are just always on that. I'm like, they're getting their good like lymphatic treatment, like in small group.
Exactly. I love it. It's such a great, easy
Yeah.
therapy. But we would also use homeopathic drainage remedies.
Mm.
That was a big thing because, again, there is something to be said. You can't throw a child or an adult walking through conventional treatment. You can't throw them into a parasite cleanse. You can't throw them
Hmm.
into a heavy metal detox because their liver is being burdened and their body is processing so much. So it is true that too much detox could really be problematic. But when you bring in gentle remedies like the ones I shared or homeopathic drainage remedies, it keeps the toxin burden low so that the body can process and flush out these cytotoxic therapies and all this
Hmm.
unnecessary medication to allow
Hmm.
them to feel well.
So you truly think it was the foundation of nutrition that you gave him pre-cancer, and then obviously that shouldn't scare any parent away who doesn't have that same beginning. But then that plus the what you did during the cancer with nutrition, and then the home remedies that you were doing with the lymphatic drainage, the detoxification, all of that, plus the modern medicine. You think that it was like truly comprehensive of what got
I
him through it.
absolutely. And we did do targeted supplementation as well. We had them
Mhm.
on, and again, we were working with a team. We had a team. So we trusted our oncology team for what they did.
Mhm.
And then we trusted our natural team for what they brought in. And so he was on high dose pancreatic enzymes, which is, like
Oh,
these
yeah.
things that I'm
Yeah.
saying, I always say, like, work with a practitioner. Don't just go out and put your kid on
Mhm.
that. This needs to be, we use it in our practice with clients, not just
Mhm.
cancer. Gosh, they're amazing for so much, but he was on a really targeted supplement protocol too.
Mm.
That we would adjust looking at his blood work, like, oh, he needs a little more liver support, or he needs, a little bit more electrolytes. We need to make sure he's methylating properly by looking at some of these markers on his labs. And so we did really have a team approach to kind of help guide us in that
Mhm.
process.
So let me ask you this because I can hear in my head just what the audience might be thinking is, okay, this sounds great. It also sounds hyper overwhelming. It sounds like a lot. Why don't you just do the mainstream medicine, just get through it, and then on the other side you can boost him? What would you say to people who are like, I don't get why you need to do the whole thing all together. It seems like way too much.
Mm. I mean, this is a fight of their life. And I just had a little boy this morning that passed away,
Oh.
and his mom didn't have the opportunity to do any of this. They were in a really critical state. And I know if you asked her, she would be like, oh, I wish there was more I could have done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so your child is in the fight of their life, like leave no stone unturned. And it is exhausting. We almost went bankrupt. We didn't have a
Yeah.
bunch of money.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance doesn't cover this.
Mm-hmm.
But we were literally willing to sell everything and live in a van by the river if
Mm-hmm.
that's what it took. And so when your child is fighting for their life, there's two things that we're looking at. We have this cancer that we need to get rid of, right? And we're trusting the chemotherapy, radiation, if necessary, to play a role in that. The side effects that are long-term and the shortened lifespan of pediatric cancer patients is asinine. I didn't want my son, they told us he couldn't have kids.
Mm-hmm.
That would be most likely, that he would have most likely would suffer from congestive heart failure in his, younger years. Chemotherapy is super toxic to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
That he would likely have a poor ability to kind of maintain muscle mass. He's an athlete. He wants to be athletic, like not to mention just the eye issues and the skin issue. I mean, if you just looked at the side effects of chemo, so we're not just talking about getting through treatment. We're talking about trying to prevent long-term side effects. And cancer is the number one leading cause of death for kids under 18.
Yeah.
So fortunately, leukemia is a little bit more treatable.
Mm-hmm.
But when they factor that in, they're looking at 5 years. That's all they're considering. If your child dies on day 1 of year 6, they're still considered a survivor. So they all get clumped into this high efficacy of treatment, and that, yes, it's working, but most kids are suffering the ill effects of treatment later on or succumbing to treatment related issues more so than the cancer.
Hmm.
And when you think about it, we have another little, and I know these are heartbreaking stories, but I just like, this is why we have to demand change. A little 5-month-old just got diagnosed, met with their parents immediately, 5 months old. And the answer is to pump her body full of chemotherapy. She died 4 days later.
Oh gosh.
And did she die of the cancer? I don't know. But I can't help but think, like, a 5-month-old
Mm-hmm.
being pumped with chemotherapy and not the parents not having another option to be like, you know what? While we think this chemo could be effective, let's like get her a little stronger first. Let's maybe work on some other IV nutrition therapies. Let's try to build her system up to get
Mm-hmm.
ready to take a more aggressive approach. But that's not even a consideration.
That's what I was just going to say. I think that is the key that I would hone in on, is that while you can do what you did and go out and source the team and find all the things and figure out a diet and a protocol, that is a lot of energy and work. It's extremely important. But it's such a shame that in 2025, we don't have that as our medical practice, that it's completely isolated, that you are only doing the chemo and the drugs and the red jello and McDonald's. That's what you're in for. It's not, let's also look at IV therapy and hyperbaric chambers and red light therapy and grounding and all the woo woo stuff, that it seems like the kids that are using that are actually, like, by and large, as you would say, they're getting through this at a much healthier rate than the kids who aren't. So that's where I feel like that's the missing link, is why are we not moving into an integrative approach just as the standard in America 2025? Do you think we're going to move into that? Or what are you seeing kind of from the inside with dealing with childhood cancer so much? Is there a resistance still to it or is this administration truly bringing in change? What do you think?
Yeah, it's such a uphill battle. There's no money in eggs and steak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Alternative therapies are still in question for kids because of efficacy. While, by the way, there's plenty of studies that have been done showing it effective and helpful and not contraindicated with chemotherapy for adults. So it's an uphill battle, and I don't know. I'm like, administration. I'm thankful they're like making some changes with food, but I'm like, we also have a bigger fish to fry here when we have 400,000 kids get cancer every year.
Yes.
And it is the number one leading cause of death of kids.
I looked it up this morning actually because I was looking at some of the stats, and 4,000 childhood cancer cases a year. That's a child diagnosed every 4 minutes. So
Or,
even
yep.
that, I just think, are we even getting to the root of this? I think we've been talking about all the treatments, but I would love for you to, as we kind of get into the toward the ending of this, I want to really focus also on that aspect that childhood cancer is exploding, that these cases, I mean, it is, I can't believe that in this year that we are looking at every 4 minutes, that means throughout this podcast so far, that's 10 kids who have been diagnosed with cancer. I think that's unacceptable. And it is a huge uptick from years before. I think that they're in these stats, they were comparing it to the 70s. I wish I could pull that. Um, I'll probably find it as we keep talking, but the rate of childhood cancer has just gone up substantially. So, what for parents who are listening and who I want to dispel the fears, the spirit of
Yeah.
fear, and instead to empower parents to be courageous and to take and harness the amazing world we have around us that God created to heal and to harness that so that we can look at these stats and not fear it, but instead say, this is what I'm going to do about it. So, what wisdom do you have for
Yeah.
those parents? Yeah.
That's so important. Cancer is an environmental disease. We know now that while some people are predisposed through their genes, through their genetic makeup, some people are predisposed to, inability to properly detox, higher levels of inflammation. So that is information that's helpful to know our genes. However, the truth is we can change our genetic expression by cleaning up our environment,
Mm.
by minimizing toxic burden, by improving nutrition, by gentle detoxification, by certain targeted supplements. So a lot of people think, well, cancer is just genetic. It's absolutely not. It's environmental. That's why we're seeing the increase in the uptick. So I think about families who want to create an environment that cancer can't survive in.
Hmm.
Like start in your home, start with what you have. And actually, it's actually less is more. So I say, number one, make your home dumb. Stop with the smart home. The disrupt of EMF and Wi-Fi constantly pulsing is literally dysregulating the nervous system. The nervous system is necessary to stay healthy and whole and to heal.
Hmm.
And so when that is out of balance, disease can totally take over. So make your home dumb. It'll cost you less anyways.
It's true.
Um, get
It's
rid
a
of
win-win.
Alexa. Yeah. I mean, just all of that.
And you
So
don't have Alexa spying on you, so it's an
yeah,
extra win too.
right. So weird when I've been at
It's
people's
so
houses
weird.
and I say something and then I'm like, what?
No.
Who's talking to
I
me?
know.
So like simplify your home. That's huge. The other thing that is so important, of course, we talked about nutrition. So the same information that we share with our cancer families, like don't wait till diagnosis to implement a healthy, real
Mm,
food diet with your family.
it's good.
And I think one of those is like, I know this sounds silly, but the emotional aspect of cancer is really powerful as well. And
Hmm.
so that family unit, that family connection. And so in a marriage, like prioritizing mom and dad to have the time they need to work through their issues, to be able to have a healthy sex life, to be able to go on
Hmm.
dates, but yet pouring back into their family and having more meals around the table.
Mm.
That makes a nervous system and a little child feel safe and
Mm.
feel comfortable. And it sounds so silly and maybe woohoo because it's not like a supplement or a therapy, but like a healthy family unit
Hmm.
is really powerful. In fact, I heard a doctor say, he's a well-renowned physician in India. And he said when a child is diagnosed with cancer in their younger years, like from an infant to, probably 5, he said, I asked the mom, what was the first trimester of pregnancy like? Did you have any like trauma? Did you have any strong emotions? Like, were you fearful? Were you anxious? Were you excited? Which are all normal.
Hmm.
And he will give the child, based on the mom's emotion or experience in first trimester, a homeopathic remedy he will give to the child based on what that mom was feeling. And
What's the
again, like
theory? What's the theory of that?
just the emotional connection to disease and
Wow.
how we inherit like generational traumas from
Hmm.
grandparents and
Hmm.
great grandparents. They can be stored in your cellular tissue.
Hmm.
And so there's, emotion code, there's different therapies
Hmm.
that are rooted in faith that
Hmm.
can help release that. But if we can also, that's where homeopathic medicine is just beautiful, because you can also help support the emotional
Hmm.
balance of a person by different remedies, and knowing like mom had fear or anger, then we give the remedy to the child
Hmm.
to help with that. So I think it really just comes
So
down to
fascinating.
this point of emotion. There is an emotional root to disease, even with littles.
Hmm.
And what we can do, we can't undo what was done. And gosh, we, as a parent, when your child gets cancer, or when your child, like your daughter, we
Hmm.
immediately take guilt
Hmm.
immediately.
Hmm.
But if we can transform that guilt to like, let's take action. And now that
Hmm.
we know better, we have the obligation to do better. And so we're going to create a healthy home. We're going to create a healthy family unit.
Hmm.
We're going to make better choices with our kids. Um, I mean, I just think that less is more, and really just coming back to like, what was the family was created to be a powerful force against evil,
Yes. Yes.
And so let's get back to that and get
Hmm.
rid of all these distractions that just keep us busy and unsettled in our spirit.
Yeah, and then eventually make us sick, and we live in a culture that makes its money off of us being constantly sick.
Yeah.
So it's being a rebel against the system
Yeah.
is what I've learned. And that's like, it's so biblical too. Like, I love that that is like, that's, that's honoring who we are as Christians, is to say that our bodies are temples, our families are sacred. And so we pursue that over a sick culture that just wants to keep us sick. And
Yep.
the results aren't very good. Okay,
Exactly.
did want to talk to you about this article, and you and I texted about this because I saw it pop up. I'm like, okay, are you comfortable talking about this? Because it's kind of the antithesis of everything we've talked about, and I know that there are going to be people who are going to come after this episode. So if you've made it this far, like and share, because there are going to be people who aren't going to like this episode, and that is fine. And we're just going to pray that these are little seeds that grow into a strong
Yeah.
oak for those people too. But case in point, there was an article that the New York Post ran last week, and the headline is "Mom Played Leading Role in Influencing Daughter 23 to Refuse Chemo and Do Frequent Coffee Enemas," from the coroner report. And then it goes on to say that the mother's background was a natural health warrior. Kate was a former nurse and she was struck off the registry in 2021 for challenging mainstream vaccine narratives and promoting holistic methods. And she survived her own breast cancer through the Gerson therapy, which is a plant-based regimen of organic juices, supplements, and coffee enemas. And I think that's down in Mexico, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
And then so the story goes on that her daughter Paloma was diagnosed in 2023 what they call a treatable cancer that boasts an 80% recovery rate via chemotherapy. But Paloma committed to Gerson therapy, incorporating 5 daily coffee enemas, a strict vegan diet. So this is opposite of, and I'm sure you'll talk about this, a strict vegan diet and fresh juices, which she described as, quote, delightful and aligned with her values. She even penned statements denying the cancer diagnosis as an absurd fantasy pushed by skeptical Western medicine. I mean, this is just everything that a mainstream media outlet would just drool over this
Yep.
story. Sadly, Paloma's tumor progressed, leading to her death, with the coroner noting her mother's incomprehensible but not unlawful influence playing a key role. Even Paloma's twin brother, Gabriel, blamed Kate, the mama, filing a high court case. So this is when they said high court case. I'm like, oh, this is in America. So I believe this was in Canada. Um, so then obviously this case echoes a lot of battles that conservative families face when protecting our kids from toxic chemo protocols, et cetera, et cetera. So the slant of that article, I mean, it's very obvious. I don't have to read it to you guys. You can understand the heart of what the message was in this little article. It's that you, mom, are a danger if you are thinking about anything other than the standard protocol, and you're going to kill your kid. So don't even think about it. And then you might turn your other kids against you and the government against you. So watch out, get in line, lockstep. That's what this article is. What is
100%.
your reaction to that, Season?
The first thing I thought when I saw that article was, let's not forget that the third leading cause of death in America is medical error.
Mm.
So, like, let's not forget that, because they get away with it. That doesn't even factor in the fact that these people were supposed to trust and were supposed to kind of just follow blindly are making suggestions that are then later found out to be, oh, yeah, that probably wasn't a good idea, to recommend you getting 14 COVID shots. And
Mm-hmm.
there, oh, I guess there are some complications and issues, right? So medical error is the third leading cause of death in America. Let's just remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Second, it's complicated because, like you said, they spun this story with the perfect agenda to get them to get followers. We
Yep.
just want people to follow what we say and not question the narrative. Cancer is very complicated. When you think of, I don't mean complicated in the sense of cancer is a symptom of something going wrong in the body. Cancer isn't the problem, it's the symptom. So if we think that chemotherapy, radiation, surgery is all that's needed to get rid of cancer, that's insane.
Mm.
Because you don't get cancer because you're deficient in chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery. That's not why
Mm-hmm.
you get cancer. The cancering process or the onco process is turned on because of a deficiency in the immune system and exposure to toxins and inability to properly detox. There's many factors that play into this. So this article being spun that like she died because she didn't take conventional treatment is asinine. We see
Mm-hmm.
people live and thrive and beat cancer all the time. They're not going to publish that when they're
Mm-hmm.
going to Hope for Cancer or some of these different hospitals and clinics that are doing integrative care. But I do think if I had a chance, which I would love, like to sit across from that mom and hear her story, I guarantee you that with her own experience, she was trying to do the best she could for her child. Do we need to do more than coffee enemas when we have cancer and more than just coffee enemas and a vegan diet? Yes.
Mm.
Because what we just talked about with the emotional root is so powerful. Then there's targeted immune therapies like mistletoe that you can do and high dose vitamin C that can be really helpful and
Mm.
effective to help turn the immune system on. There's different testing we can do to look. One of my favorite tests is called the total tox, and I do it on all my clients. And it shows us the toxic burden in their body. Like, is it filled with mycotoxins, toxins from mold? Is it filled with environmental toxins? Is it filled with plastics?
Mm.
And that information can help show us, like, what do we need to really support in this situation?
Yeah.
So I think, again, and Kate, if I had a chance, I always say stepping closer, it's really hard to hate close up.
Mm.
When you have the chance to sit in front of somebody and hear their story, I guarantee you it changes our perspective, right? So in Kate's defense, assuming she was doing the best she could for her
Mm-hmm.
child, I don't think that a parent should be, unless the parent is a signing provider. And even at that case, I think that the parent needs to employ a team of people that are trained and
Mm-hmm.
how to walk their child through these therapies,
Yeah.
right? And the problem is that it's polarized because we have one way to do it, and that's the only way mainstream tells you to do it. And the minute you try to go outside of it, they call you crazy.
Yes.
Because of that, these parents like her, it sounds like we're put into a kind of a hole of like, maybe she couldn't find somebody
Mm-hmm.
to come alongside and support her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't think that a mom, like I would not be, even now, if something happened to one of my children right now and we got a cancer diagnosis, I wouldn't be their main provider. I would hire a team to come alongside and lead us through this. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a fight for your life.
Yeah.
Like, you're playing a basketball game, you need to make sure all your players are ready and
Mm-hmm.
healthy and ready to go and
Mm-hmm.
ready to win.
It's good. Okay, let's go into before we wrap up because I want you to be able to share with our audience what you do and how, like, what you provide for families based on everything we've talked about. But before that, I did want to ask you your thoughts on just the news that never sleeps, my friend. I think I told you, I can't remember now if I said it during this episode recording or in the green room with you, but I accidentally stumbled on Trump's his conference that he gave just a couple weeks ago about pouring $50 million into AI to predict cancer progression and to slash treatment side effects. And I was watching actually his oh gosh, you know what? It must have been one of his big pharma because he had Pfizer there. So I was watching that, and Bobby Kennedy standing right behind the director of Pfizer, just looking super awkward. And I'm like, I can't even imagine the tension in that room. And
Ooh.
then he goes straight into this next conference that's about how Trump is going to use AI now and we're going to pay $50 million to predict cancer progression and to slash treatment side effects, which sounds good because, I mean, we don't want childhood cancer. We don't want kids getting sick. We don't want kids dying from cancer. AI is here to stay. Unfortunately, it can be good or bad, but it's here to stay. And we're going to have to learn how to put boundaries on it and use it to our benefit and not let it take over the world, which is like the concern with AI. I've talked a lot about AI and I'll continue talking about it because I think it is a genie in a bottle and it has popped right on out of the bottle and it's here.
Yep.
But it was, so this, with Trump. He signed this on September 30th, unlocking cures for pediatric cancer with artificial intelligence. This order doubles federal funding to $50 million for AI-driven research, predicting progression and minimizing side effects. HHS announced that it doubles AI-backed childhood cancer research, granting funds to scientists applying AI for personalized predictions, which they are saying is a game changer for the 9,500 US kids that are diagnosed yearly. Trump declared at the signing that was hosted by cancer survivors, we're going to defeat childhood cancer once and for all, tying into broader pushes for innovative, less toxic, according to him, care. So I want your thoughts on this whole initiative that builds on his 2019 initiative to expand AI to analyze for faster data, faster cures, and now we have 50 million that's set aside of our money to go into all this. So with your experience, you are on the heartbeat of childhood cancer from an integrative perspective. Is this good? Are we doing the right thing bringing AI into this? And do you like what you're seeing with this? Do you have concerns? What are your thoughts on it?
First of all, I want to be a part of it. Like, bring somebody in that's in the field that is literally walking with these families and seeing what they need, right? I
Yes.
don't want to be in politics. I mean, it's like,
Okay, well, you just said it. I'm going to tag you. I'm tagging all the big players. I'm like, Bobby,
oh, but like
season
for
over
real,
here.
that's it. It's just like my husband used to be in law enforcement. And he would say, it's one thing when the sergeants and captains are in their office, comfortably sitting there making calls and dictating how things go. And he's like, and I'm on the streets. I know
Mm-hmm.
how things should, right? It's like that
Mm-hmm.
perspective of like stepping closer
Yeah, I've been
because
in
you
it.
have to know. Yeah, you got to be in it. So you can't be making these decisions on the sidelines behind a desk and not just Trump. I'm talking about like the scientists and the researchers, like put a bald kid's face in front of you
Mm.
and then sit with their mother next and talk to them, right? Like we have to be involving people that are in the work that we're doing, like me and these families. And so I will say, first of all, the National Cancer Institute spends $7 billion of research on cancer annually. Kids get 4% of that.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
That's insane. And like,
Mhm.
now I've never really spoken boldly out against that because all of that research is spent on more drugs
Mm.
and more toxic therapies,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I do believe that you heard me say it, like I do believe chemotherapy, radiation, surgery can absolutely play a role in a cancer
Sure.
diagnosis. It can't be the only thing. And so we have been trying to fight this war on cancer since Richard Nixon declared it years ago. And
Mm.
all we're seeing is more diagnoses and more toxic therapies that are giving kids longer lasting side effects. So
Mm-hmm.
this particular bill, 50 million, that's a drop in the bucket. It's like laughable,
Mm.
honestly. It is. When you think of the 7 billion being spent and 4% of that goes to kids and then like, here's another 50 million. Hopefully that makes you feel better.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of a joke. And nothing in here is mentioned about the metabolic approach
Mm.
of like, let's look at what is turning on the onco process. Like what's turning this cancering process on in the first place. And maybe we should use our funding to kind of explore nutrigenomics and to look at how the genes are playing a role in this and how we can change that expression, or maybe how nutrition in the hospitals could enhance the efficacy of the treatment and the quality of life for the child. Like none of that is mentioned in this.
Mm-mm.
I agree with you. It's like I use it sometimes and it's so helpful. I was actually just creating a formula for a child on kidney failure and I was using AI to help me come up with I knew the nutrients we wanted in it and just to kind of use it to help make sure I had the right amount of phosphorus and,
Mm-hmm.
that things like that, so helpful.
Amazing. Yeah.
But the minute you say like an AI bill for more personalized diagnostics or whatever, like you're completely taking the personalized out of it.
Mm.
because the cancering process is unique to each individual. And that's when I talk about the emotional piece, the
Yeah, that's
spiritual
where it's like you
piece.
do need you need real human touch in there, like what you've been doing, like in the thick of it. Who knows, who's felt it, who's seen it, who's lived it. AI is like, AI is trained to see all of the chatter, but is not, it can never be human. That's the thing, is like, as much as we think AI can replace us, it can do a lot of things because it's mimicking. It's a mimic bird, but it's not human. Like, and it's never going to be human.
And who's speaking to who's training the AI? It's
Hmm.
coming from a conventional perspective. The AI is going to only know so much from what it's, like you said, what it's being fed.
Hmm.
And so if we're not bringing any conversation about metabolic health into that,
To train
then
it. Yeah.
what do
Hmm.
we do? I mean, we're just coming up with more drugs and more, like, yes, I do believe that some of these therapies and clinical trials can be helpful, but my gosh, like, less is more. Like,
Mm.
strip all of this away for a minute and let's just talk about the basic of human health and what that looks like. And it's nutrition, it's movement, it's emotions, it's simplifying, it's stripping away the EMFs and the smart homes and the, like, it really is simple.
Hmm.
And I think that is more digestible for families as well, is like, but all that to say, like, the only thing we can hope for is that my parents don't have to keep fighting with their oncologist about trying to bring in these supplements or these foods and arguing about how dangerous it is that they're putting their child in a detox bath. That how dare them ever consider high dose vitamin C therapy? Like, if they do that, they'll get CPS called on them. We need to come to the point where our administration takes a step in, where all of these doctors have to be willing to work with a parent, right? And keep that parental right at the forefront. But that's only going to happen if they bring people in like us who
Yeah.
can speak to what is working and what is cancer. Cancer is a metabolic disease. So let's talk about that. Let's bring that approach into the conversation so that these doctors can see none of this is contraindicated. It's only going to help your patient do better through treatment and have less
Yeah.
chance of recurrence down the road.
I would love to see that. I mean, that's where I think you can't put AI back in the bottle because it's already out of the bottle.
Yeah.
But with Bobby Kennedy there, I followed him for years, and I do know that he is a champion of believing mothers. So we don't agree with
Yeah.
everything, and I have thoughts on how he's doing things where I want him to go in heavier and harder, but I get that it's a swamp in there. But I would love to see him really bring those mamas like you to the table. To, if we're
Yeah.
going to use AI, then we sure better think about how we're training AI in terms of, is it integrative, or are we only isolating it to just being the mainstream version, which we know it's so archaic. That's where I'm like, let's move past what isn't working, like, and look at the root cause, and look at, because we all want to see childhood cancer gone, but it's people like you who are tip of the spear, and I do believe you are the wave of the future, and you've lived it. So that's why I'm so thankful for you continuing to champion a better way through cancer than what has been drilled into us as being the only way. So as we close out, I want you to share with people how they can find you, what you offer families who are going through childhood cancer, and then just to leave everyone with some hope. I know that this can feel really heavied out, and I never want people to leave
Mm.
just thinking, oh my gosh, the world is like so dark and awful, and is it going to be my child? Because all these kids who just got diagnosed with cancer during this episode, that is a reality, but we can harness a better way forward. And I want to leave people with that we can blend truth. We can lean into God's sovereignty. We can trust the Lord as so sovereign and so good and so healing. And I just want to leave people with that hope from you, and then for you to share how people can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with that. I think, I love the story of Moses in the Bible and how he had this staff and he wandered with that staff. He wandered in the desert for years. He killed people with that staff.
Mm-hmm.
That staff carried a lot of secrets. And if you look at that staff, like, I want parents that are listening to think of that staff being the fear, because as parents, we're always afraid we're always thinking of our kids. what happens when Moses throws that staff down and God calls him to, throw the staff down? He throws it at his feet, it turns into a snake, and God completely redeems that whole situation. And then Moses uses that staff to lead the nation of Israel through the wilderness to the promised land. And so God took what was his, let's say, fear, and he redeemed it completely and used it to transform a nation and lead them to the promised land. And so I think about that with fear. It's, 365 times it says in the Bible, do not fear. It's a command or a reminder for every day.
Yeah.
And you have to surrender that at the feet of Jesus, because there's nothing that can like magically take fear away. It's like, Lord, you have to carry this. Like, fear is toxic. It's not helpful for anybody. So just surrender that and let God redeem that fear, that, and use that for empowerment, like Moses did. Like, just picture him walking through the wilderness with his staff, leading a nation into a promised land. And so use that fear and take action. Take action right now. Like, go unplug your Wi-Fi tonight, so that while your family's sleeping, there's no EMFs being emitted. Make something a little healthier for dinner. Share this podcast episode so it reaches more family. Like, think of action and take action with that fear. And then, as far as getting a hold of, so we support families 3 ways. We have a nonprofit. It's called Kick Cancer. And we started this when Kicker was in treatment. It's actually 10 years old this year. And we send kits. We call it a Kickstart kit. We send it to families that are diagnosed. And it has just a beautiful array of natural healing modalities in that box to get you started. It has a lot of things we talked about: detox supplies, detox bath, castor oil packs, a devotional, essential oils to help calm the tummy and calm nerves, healthy organic foods and snacks. There's a cape in there for the kids, a superhero cape. So this is available through our nonprofit. We sponsor athletes. We do believe that for kids, they need to also have something to look forward to keep them like motivated to move forward in their healing. And we want to get them back doing the sport they loved, whether it was horseback riding or riding a motorcycle or surfing or basketball. So we sponsor kids that help pay for their athletic endeavors. And then we do monthly talks for free. We have special guests come on and speak to families about different modalities of healing and support. My daughter is actually doing the talk this week.
Wow.
She's 16 and she's going to talk about what it's like to be a sibling and how parents can support their other children. It's rough. And she's going to share things that it's going to break my heart, of like things I wish we would have done better for her. Right.
It's
so
a
that's
good
our
point.
nonprofit.
Yeah.
And you can find us at kickcancermovement.org and request a kit. We'd love to sponsor you. Or if you want to give, we'd be honored. And then I have a group program for families of pediatric cancer patients who are walking through treatment, and a group program for people who are in remission. And we just support you in a group setting. Healing doesn't happen alone. It happens in community. And you get support from myself and our functional medicine doctor. It's all virtual. And then we also do work through our private practice. We work with clients one-to-one if they need that more targeted support. And so biodynamicwellness.com is our private practice. My website is seasonjohnson.com. I'm hoping to start merging things. There's just too many things happening, but there's a lot of ways that we can support
We'll drop
you.
everything in the show notes too. So it's really easy to find. And I'll actually have you send me over any good links that you want me to load into the show notes. So then that's helped people in the past. I get lots of comments about, thank you for those show notes, because I was able to send them to my friends. So I'll have you send me over any of the modalities or info that you have that you think would be a benefit for the audience to just drop down into the show notes and click through it. And you're based in San Diego, California. So for anyone that's out here, do you see patients who are out of state too, or are they mostly local?
No, we work all over the world. Actually, we have clients internationally.
Look at you. I'm so proud of you.
So
the
everywhere.
Lord did redeem something that was really sad and hard into something that's so good. And I am so thankful for you. I'm so thankful for you coming on and sharing your heart. And I really think it's been on my heart since I started this podcast, just to keep this conversation going, because I know when I went through stuff with my daughter and I felt so overwhelmed and I don't even know what to do. I'm supposed to make all these huge decisions and I don't even know how to put one foot in front of the other. That's where it's if we can kind of prepare, not for disaster, but if we can prepare for our future just in general, and we can know that this is what is available in situations like this, then I think it takes the fear out of it
Yeah.
a little bit. Obviously, it's still a horrific situation with childhood cancer, but I think knowing that there are other ways and that there are children who are being healed in a beautiful way through childhood cancer that looks very different than the traditional system is
Yeah.
encouraging. And it just takes, yeah, it makes me feel like we're in an era of change. And I'm
Yes.
here for it. I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful
Yeah.
for you.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me share and getting this message out.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Susan.
Hey, I wanted to give you an update on how my son Kicker is doing now. He's so strong. He's 14 and a half. He's competitive surfer. He does jujitsu. His muscles are bigger than mine. He saunas regularly. He works out with weights regularly. He's a beast. He's so healthy. He has this unbelievable approach to life that you recognize as really unique as a 14-year-old. Like, he's very intentional with his decisions, with his thoughts, with his nutrition. It's really beautiful to see. So we are so thankful that he's so healthy and doing so well. And we continue to be really intentional with his health. And that's just a part of the rest of his life. Is he got this chance to have a beautiful opportunity of a wake-up call. And we don't take it for granted, and we make sure to honor his health that way.